tell us how long you've been going to Holy Trinity or affiliated with Holy Trinity.
I'm Mariana Wright Lee, and I've been going to Holy Trinity since 1919 when I was baptized, and I've been there ever since.
I'm Francis Canoe, and I've been here for 49 years, ever since I was born.
I joined the Catholic Church in 1950 when I married Mariana, and I've been there ever since.
I'm William Wainwright, baptized here in 1920. I'm 80 years old now, still here.
I'm Ben Canoe, and been here since 1946.
I'm Francis Critney Jr. I was baptized here in 1924, but in 1956 we moved to Columbus, and I didn't come back until 1982. I've been going here all that time.
My name is Francis Swift. I've always went here all my life, and I'm 72.
Okay. Our format is I'm going to introduce topics to you. And I would just like for any of you who have any story to tell concerning that particular topic to just speak right up and say what you have to say. Our first topic of discussion is going to be on priests. So any priest story that you would like to tell, just go at it. Somebody jump in.
Okay, the first priest that I remember was Father John Benkowski. Father John Benkowski had a bad habit of showing up late. He was a tinker mainly, and he done a lot of the maintenance around the church himself, whatever he could, with the help of a few parishioners.
And I've worked with Father John Bankowski. We drove a school bus 2 years together. He would drive from Franklin to Greenwood, and I'd pick up in the Edinburgh area and take it up there to him, and he would take the children on to Greenwood. One thing I remember one time, he had a brake problem on the back of his big bus. And I went up one night, and he and I took the rear wheels off and repaired the brake lining and put it back. And yes, he was quite a go-getter.
Well, I remember when I was an altar boy, Father Seeger was a priest here, and we looked forward to the picnic. He always did was a picnic every summer, and he always had a great big thing of ice cream. And we went up to Irwin Park, and he had rented a rowboat or something, and we really had a time. Never eaten so much ice cream in my life. Good memory.
Well, Father Benkowski, when Lent come, he always read the rules of Lent. And little bitty skinny fella up there hadn't eaten for 2 or 3 days, you can tell that. And he's up there and read us the Articles of Lent.
One Sunday, we expected Father Moran to be there, and he wasn't there. Come to find out, he had a wreck on the way up, ran off the road, knocked down a telephone post, and it was just, we were all waiting, and we didn't know what to happen.
But he finally came, didn't he? He made it.
I think he got a ride, didn't he?
Somebody stopped and gave him a ride on the way over here. He had a little mark on his forehead.
He was assistant at Columbus, St. Bartholomew, and then he came up here.
Oh, yeah.
We have been assistant mission church with Columbus, St. Bartholomew, and with Franklin. And we've never had our own priest here.
Well, I remember after church we had to go down and see the telephone post. Got a jug and put the piece of the telephone post in the jug. Saved it for years. It was all the way down in the basement.
Is that right?
Oh yeah, for years.
Ben, you might want to tell the story about Father John Bankowski, about how your kids always wanted him to come home with you on Saturday when he did Saturday Mass.
Well, yeah, we ought to talk about Saturday. Mowing grass was Saturday Mass.
Father John Benkowski said 6 masses here in Edinburgh. So us kids figured out that if we would invite Father John down for breakfast, we could get out of our Saturday chores. And Father would always promise that would agree to have breakfast with us if he could leave right after breakfast. And then quite often he said, well, right after lunch I definitely have to leave. And then right after supper he said, I definitely have to leave. And sometimes he would have people coming in, and he would take my brother and sister Joe home to help him clean his house so that it would look presentable to the visitor. And Father John would start a coffee pot on Sunday morning. He'd put in a spoonful of coffee, and then each day he would add a spoonful of coffee and keep boiling the same grounds over and over. Then on Saturday he would empty the grounds. Then started a new pot on Sunday. Well, he ate in about the same fashion. He would usually fix something, and each day he would add something to it. By the end of the week, he'd usually have a pretty good stew going. But I would say that was probably when we started eating mixed vegetables. My dad went up and helped him one time do some repairs on the church up there, and my dad was laid off at the time. And every day there would be a new vegetable in the stew.
Ben, did he also make the cabinets in the sacristy back
Oh, yes, yes. Father John Bankowski built the cabinets in the sacristy. And actually, I think they were pretty much built out of used materials.
Did he make the crib too?
Yes, Father John made the crib in probably around 1952 or 3.
That we use today.
Yes.
It's
And
still in use.
yes,
I think that, did he make that out of locust wood, those cabinets back there, they're kind of yellow color? And I thought-
they're either a locust or poplar.
Poplar.
Yes.
I didn't think it was proper, I thought that he had made that with some.
I can remember another project that him and my dad had. They sawed holes in the sanctuary floor, and they went under the church and shored up the floor joists because the floor joists were beginning to settle. And they would take bricks and mortar and pieces of timber, and they slid it underneath the sanctuary and jacked it up till the floor was even with the base. The floor was pulled away from the base, and they would pour a little dab of concrete, a little footing, and then start laying brick out underneath the shoring, and they done the whole entire sanctuary area.
Really did the whole church. I helped him. We got around the church, all the joists had shrank a little, and we drove shims in on them, so that the whole floor of the church up there.
I know this was a lead-in for me. My mother died in 1956, and when my father was shoring the church up and doing projects here at church, I came to church and helped him. I was no help at all. They were mixing mortar right outside the back door, and I was daydreaming, and I was leaning back and forth and swaying back and forth. And I fell head first right in the mortar.
Oh, boy.
And Father John was a comical man. He just wiped my eyes and my mouth and took my picture. I would love to have a copy of that
Oh,
picture
yeah.
if we ever found Father's death and stuff.
Gracious, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but I never lived that one down. I was going to say, where the public facilities or the restroom was, where they eventually made it a normal type restroom. The window was where the door was, and the door was where the window used to be. And what happened is that it used to have a glass doorknob on it. It broke off years ago, and there was just this little thing. And I had to use the bathroom, so I went to the bathroom, and it was near the end of the church, and I couldn't get out. and I couldn't get out the door, and I'm standing on the box the window and I see people leaving, and I see my family going down the sidewalk. And it was just a traumatic experience because I just saw my family leaving me at church, and I was trapped in a restroom. But you know, I just still have that vision of looking
How
out
did
the
you ever
window.
get out?
I think I crawled out the window because I couldn't get the door open. And of course Ben said, "Oh, it's easy, just do this." Didn't work for me. So that's it. No, well, I really don't know, but when we were cleaning, a couple of years ago, when we were shoring up this church, a couple of years ago, Ben and I were in church, and it's Christmas time, and everything's loaded to the hilt, and people are coming around the corner, and they feel the floor go down a little bit, and said, you know, we ought to check, this is 1956, we ought to check the floor joists again. And so, you know, we checked them, and some of the brick was coming out, and some of the floor joists, you know, dry rotted, and so, you know, we were trying to figure out how much weight was on each floor joist, and so that got brought around one of the projects where, you know, we shored up the church again, and it was very meaningful to me to work with my brother and my nephews and you know, sort of finishing a job that my father started, you know, in the 50s, and it was a religious experience as well as a physical experience, and it's interesting what you find in places, little bottles and just cans, you know, it's sort of going through history where someone would have left something underneath the church and leaving something, you know, just a good experience.
Well, okay. Father Schweitzer, at that time we were going to St. Bartholomew's School, so every time we had a funeral in Edinburgh, he would ask Edinburgh's altar boys to serve Mass. And he drove a big Oldsmobile, and he loved to drive fast. So we would always persuade him to drive fast coming to Edinburgh for the funerals, and quite often we would hit 100 miles an hour coming down 31, coming to a funeral. And,
Literally.
you wouldn't have to talk to him too hard. I mean, he just loved to drive fast, you know. And that big old Oldsmobile handled quite well.
What about him getting a badge from Wimpy, and so when it got stopped?
So I didn't know about that.
I think our police chief was Wimpy Burton, you know, was legendary. And he was our bus driver, and Wimpy, you know, we'd go to Columbus and back, but Father Schweitzer thought since he got so many speeding tickets, it wouldn't be bad if he was a deputy or something somewhere. So Father Schweitzer made him a deputy here in Edinburgh, so that when he got stopped, he was getting out his license, he'd get out his police badge too. I'm out a lot of scrapes. So,
There you go.
Oh, I got one about Father Zori. Father Zori was from the Latin school on the way. Well, anyway, at that time I was a sacristan, and he would always bring me down a bottle of wine, and we would keep it at home in the refrigerator. Well, I told him that we were out of wine and for him to bring another bottle. So it was during Lent, and I was about 16 years old, and he came down, and I asked him if he had brought some wine. He said no, he hadn't. And all the people were in church, and we were trying to figure out what we were going to do. So I figured that I would run to Franklin and ask the priest for enough wine to say Mass. And could you imagine a 16-year-old kid walking up and knocking on the rectory door and asking a priest for enough wine to say Mass? But anyway, I made it to Franklin and back, and we had Mass that evening.
You're all.
Okay, well, it was also during Lent, and Father Gleason came down, and Father Gleason would absolutely scare the dickens out I was a young kid, altar boy or whatever. And, so we were serving mass and we offered him the wine and I looked down in the cruet and we forgot to check it. There was mold floating in it. And as he was dumping it into the chalice, I said, oh, please God, please don't let that mold fall out. And luckily it did. And he never did see it that way. And so we had moldy wine for mass.
We're on.
Our next topic for discussion here is going to be about interior changes inside the church, so take it away.
We used to have a communion railing all the way across, and they always put a cloth over, when you went to communion, you put the cloth over the communion railing, and then all the statues had been taken out. And then we had a confessional in the back, and you were supposed to not eat anything from midnight on before you could go to communion. And the kneelers, oh, they were terrible. They were wooden kneelers, and I'd have dents in my knees when I'd come home for all day long. They were hard.
Really hurt, didn't they?
Oh, they were hard.
I wasn't here when they changed it all. What year was it, Mary?
I don't know.
I was going to Columbus at that time when I came
Well,
back.
I remember when they used to say mass,
In Latin.
the priest would face the other direction, and they gave it in Latin. And then that's been changed, they don't have that anymore. And they face the audience. I noticed the difference there.
One of the big things I miss, one is the Latin, two is the chimes.
Yeah.
We had five bar chimes, and at the special moments, you know, in the church, then you'd ring the chimes, and you always had to know you had to be paying attention because you'd have to look around Father to know what's going on if he didn't have his arms up high enough. That means you couldn't doze or anything, you had to pay attention, and you'd ring 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 5. And, you know, it was a great moment at a great time. You
A
know.
lot of pressure on a young boy that way. I remember.
It was. You know, the main thing was the church was quieter.
Yeah.
And that's when you didn't have to have a sound system. Everybody, out of respect, back, and that's just a sign of the times, where you would be quiet and you would just listen for the chimes to let you know that something great is about to happen.
Well, basically the mass was said in Latin at that time. So when an important part of the mass was being said, you know, that's why the chimes were read, were rang. Most of the time, I don't know, the mass sort of went on while you were reading some scripture in your missal or something like this here, because you really couldn't understand what was going on. I sort of like the English mass because now you know what's going on.
Well, the chimes were special to our church. Most of them had bells. You know, they had 4 or 5 bells together, and you knew when the bells rang. And when we would go to Columbus to Mass, it was always better here because it was, you know, more subtle. But, you know, the chimes meant a lot more.
Wayne, you want to talk about the furnace?
What's first?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
we got off track.
When I first remember church, we had a coal furnace. And the janitor come up and built the fire early in the morning, or maybe the night before. And Francis's dad was one of the fire
Yeah, he did
builders.
for several years, yeah.
And before him was old Sam Sims. Used to build
Yeah, that's
fire.
right.
So when they got an oil furnace, Lawrence Johan was treasurer or something to do with it, and Father Bankoski was here. So we cleaned out the basement. All the ashes for years and years had been thrown back in the crawl space. And we hauled all them out, and the whiskey bottles where they broke the coal oil in to start the fires. And Father Bankoski was right up in all the dirt and dust for working right with us.
I'm glad that you brought up, what those whiskey bottles were brought in for. I thought they were just whiskey.
And apparently, start the fire.
But I could remember as a kid coming up on Saturday evening, stoking the furnace, and then coming up first thing Sunday morning and stoking the furnace again. And when it was really cold, there's no way you take the coat off the church. I mean, you know,